Welcome back to Matchknit Garage. Today we're going to be working on Eric's 1977 Ford. No. We're going to be working on my 1955 Chevy. You know, the cool one. As you can see, we got the 55 to the shop. Eric's been working on getting the shop cleaned up and he got better lighting in here, so we actually have some room to move around and we can see what we're doing, which is really exciting. Eric went ahead and did some of the boring stuff off camera and got the front axle taken out so we can get the frame cleaned up and ready for our new suspension. In the last video, we talked a little bit about what we were picturing for the future of this truck and what we want it to look like. And we also mentioned that we have a surprise for this video. Let's go take a look at what we've got.
It's bugging me sitting there. All right, I always say that it's cheaper to buy a whole vehicle than it is to buy individual parts when you need enough of them. So we picked up this 1956 Chevy 3600. It was listed locally. It's really hard to pass up, so we went and scooped it up. Let's take a quick walk around, show you some of the parts on this truck that caught our eye. Right up front here, this truck already had the Mustang II front suspension installed on it. It has the nice tubular control arms. It did come with the coil springs. They just weren't installed. But the downside is it's not mounted in the right spot. So that's a perfect reason for us to cut it all out of here and put it over on the 55. It's all brand new. It's never been driven on. It's a little rusty, but you know, that'll clean up. So that's a good start. This suspension alone is pretty much paid for the whole truck. And then we get all the parts as a bonus. So let's keep going. Another part that we don't have for the 55 is a windshield. This one's not perfect. It has some fogging along the bottom. There's a couple wiper marks on the other side. But it's good enough and it will look good with a patina truck. So we can polish some of that stuff out, make it a little bit more see-through so you're not seeing the big arcs of the wiper marks. I think it'll be good. Remember, these windshields are, I don't know, $300 plus however much it costs to ship a big windshield. So this will save a bunch of money on us up front. You know, and if we want to change it to a new one later on, we can always do that at that time. The big thing that I was struggling with on the 55 over here are the doors. You know, the one is original, the passenger one here, it's been changed. Neither of them are super great. The bottoms are completely missing. So this one's got two good doors. The bottoms are all there. You know, it's not just missing. You know, that's huge. There's good glass in these. Well, there's good glass in the driver's door. The passenger door on the 55 here has good glass, so we can kind of mix and match some of the pieces there. The door latches work, the window mechanisms work. We'll just probably have to do some work on the vent windows because the top post seems to be broke off. And you know, this one's kind of the same way. On the inside here, you just look through the window. You know, the cab is in not bad shape. Where this cab is good, this cab is bad. Where this cab is bad, our other cab is good. But the cab on the 55 is definitely much better. So we're going to stick with that one. Floors in this are all pretty decent. Came with, if you look in here, it came with some of the shocks for the front end. The rest of the pieces that aren't in there, some springs. These are some of the eyebrow parts. So it's not so bad. We'll end up selling the cab to somebody that can use it. So got a good rear window. And this one was also a big window. So we'll probably hold on to that glass just in case we break one of them or whatever, because you know they're both going to come out. I don't know how many people have been out there, you know, put a piece of glass in by themselves with the rubber seal. You know, if you get too much pressure, they just crack right down the middle. So worst case scenario, we crack one, we've got another one ready. Now, the way this truck is exactly how it was sitting out in the field. Here's the front clip. You know, it's been sitting like this for at least a year. Hood's in there. The fenders are just really rotted out. The front above the eyebrow above the headlight is missing. The back corners where they meet the doors, that's completely rotted out. It's almost like somebody took it off and stood it up against a building or something, and then just it rotted away sitting in the dirt. So unfortunately the fenders are just completely garbage. But it's got a good grille, good core support. The inner fenders aren't so bad, so we'll keep all the good parts off and then, you know, use what we can. The hood, that's another part that we're probably going to use. The hood that came on the 55, it had a big old weird weld mark right in the center of it behind the hood ornament. So this hood doesn't have that. It doesn't have any dents. It doesn't have any rust holes in it. So it's a good usable hood. You know, the downside to a lot of this is we're going to have to match the patina on the rest or for the rest of the truck. But the hood was already changed. One door was already changed. So we were going to have to do that work anyways. So yeah, didn't think it was a bad deal. Unfortunately, the rear axle is, you know, it's a factory rear axle. Nothing too crazy, nothing to get excited about. But it's got a good bed on it. Both rear fenders are good. There's a little bit of rust and rot down here, but you know, that's not the end of the world. So overall, I think it was a good purchase. But the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start cutting this front suspension off. I've already taken the front axle out of here, so we can start cleaning up the frame, getting all that going. But I'm going to get all this suspension off. I've got to carefully cut that Mustang II crossmember out, and so that it's still the same shape as it was originally, so that all the measurements work out and we can get it installed in this frame in the correct location, and then we can really get going on this. Well, it's the next morning. I'm going to start by getting the suspension, control arms, and steering taken off this Mustang II crossmember, so I can carefully start cutting that out. You know, it's not that it was put in bad, it was just put in the wrong spot. It's like 1.5 inches too far back in the frame, shoving the tires too far to the side or the firewall. So we'll get that cut off and then we'll start mocking it up on the 55. Well, things escalated quickly. Got the crossmember off and then started just diving right in, cleaning up some of the frame on the 55. Get the shock mounts off, that sort of thing. But I started grinding at it and that was taking forever. So I busted out the plasma cutter. You know, it did about the same amount of damage, but realistically the frame's probably not worth much anyway, being a long bed and, you know, having a crossmember cut out of it. But started digging on here, got shock mounts off here, started cutting out the brake lines, that sort of thing, scraping, you know, 70 years of grease off there. You know, there's actually some, you know, factory paint, you know, unrusted metal. I was surprised to see that. So now I've got quite a mess going on. I had to get the air hammer out, so all sorts of things. Now I'm going to work on getting that steering gearbox out, get the steering column out. Not 100% sure how that comes out. I'd like to save it if possible. You know, I don't like cutting up good parts. So I'm going to start disassembling the steering wheel, get the turn signal switch off of there, see if I can't get it out through the bottom. I'm pretty sure that's how it comes out. So start doing that and then get cleaned up a little bit here and, you know, start moving on to mocking up the cross member. All right, so I'm going to start try to pull this steering wheel off. Let's get these couple bolts out if they'll come out. Oh, for sure they'll come out. You know, this isn't something we'll be saving. You know, to make it look good, you'd probably have to get some paint or chrome on there, but, you know, it's just a rubber steering wheel, so nothing special. Well, apparently that just comes right off. So that we might have to pull off though. I don't know. I've never done one of these before, so we'll see. Obviously that pulls straight out of there somehow. Let's see. I gotta get a puller, we'll get that pulled off, and then I'll start dealing with this turn signal switch. Seems like it's already, you know, half off, so really shouldn't be that hard. I'd imagine as soon as I get this steering wheel, I don't know, what do you call this, mount, puck, whatever it is, get that off of there. It might just slide right off the end here. You know, the wiring's junk already. A bunch of frayed wires everywhere, so it's not really usable. So we'll pull that off, at least save the guts of it. You know, maybe there's some of that you can't really get. I'm not sure. So I'll get a puller and we'll get that off of there. Well, I got the steering column out. I was not able to get that steering wheel mount block pulled off there. I've only got a 2-bolt puller, needed a 3-bolt puller. My 3-jaw puller I forgot I broke a long time ago, so I've never replaced it. So what I did, I just left all that on here. There was a big rust hole here anyway, so I just connected the dots. We're going to be patching all this in, you know, along with all the floor. So not a super big deal. What I really wanted to do is keep the column whole, you know, so maybe somebody else can use it. You know, it's always nice to pass these parts on to somebody else that can. So I'm gonna work on get all my mess cleaned up, maybe scrape the frame down a little bit more. What we have to do next is cut this front cross member in half. Make way for the new Mustang cross member. So the Mustang cross member, you know, for point of reference, we got the firewall coming forward. Mustang cross member is going to come, you know, right to about here. So in order to mock it all up, we've got to box the inside of the frame here. We're going to have to cut this lower lip back a little bit, which you don't lose any strength there just because it's, you know, 3 inches wide on the bottom, narrow on the top. So, but we need to leave this cross member here to keep the frame rails in the right spot. So it's riveted on the top and bottom. Get these out of the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave the front half. I'm going to use a plasma cutter, go right down the center, and we'll get rid of the back half. And that way the frame rails will still locate themselves, and then we'll start mocking up the cross member. Probably going to wire wheel the frame, get that kind of, you know, get some of the rust knocked off, and you know, then we'll start mocking it up. I've got to clean the cross member up yet. I got all the slag on there from the plasma cutter, so I'm going to get cleaned up and we'll get at it. All right, they just spent a bunch of time grinding on the cross member, getting all the plasma cutter slag off there. I wire wheeled the frame. So let me show you where we're at, and then we'll go over what's next. So I just have the cross member sitting there on the jack. That's about where it's going to be. I've got to fine tune its fitment yet. I've got a line scribed into the frame there. That's the center line of the cross member. That's going to be, it's supposed to be 20 7/8 inches back from the shackle, spring shackle center pin. So I've got that all cleaned up, measured roughly about where it's going to go. I was lucky enough to where I cut the cross member out, I was able to get it right about to where it was originally. So it fits pretty well. The next thing we got to do is I've got to make plates to go behind there to box this section of the frame. The plates that were on the other frame, they were just, they got cooked with the plasma cutter. So it's not really worth pulling them out of there. And then once we've got those in, then we've got to make these little C-notch cuts. This is for the power steering rack to fit in there without hitting the frame. So that's what we're going to do next. Probably get back on that tomorrow morning. I had to go out on a service call this afternoon, so that killed the afternoon pretty good. So we'll be back in the morning and we'll get right back on it and try to get this welded in tomorrow. Well, I'm back this morning. I've got to get this cross member in today. Really need to have it fully welded in today with all the control arms back on. Try to keep this project on schedule. So I spent the first couple hours this morning getting these boxing plates for the frame rails cut out, ground down, fitted properly. So let me show you what I've got. So they're just sitting in there now. I haven't started welding anything yet. I've got to grind up on the frame a little bit, prep the surface. I've got a little bit more to cut out on the bottom lip right there, and then a little bit of this cross member, the factory cross member that's sitting here, so that can fit better. So I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to get those tacked in and then get the cross member tacked to them, and then I'll double check, triple check, check it like 150 times, make sure my measurements are right. I don't want this thing crab walking down the road at all. So I'm going to start doing that, and then I'll bring you back in and show you where we landed. And then we got to start working on the spring tower buckets. Once we've got that in, then we can burn it all in and we should be pretty well set. We do still have to do the C-notches for going over the power steering rack boots, give it some clearance. So one thing at a time, and we'll get it done today. So I was cruising right along today. Didn't really get a chance to pick up the camera much between having everything mocked up with the box plates, but I got it all welded in now, and check this out. So got spring buckets on. Everything's fully welded. I've got to weld the bottom side yet, but I'm going to let that I'm going to wait on that until I have the frame upside down. But I got the steering rack just sitting there. I wanted to see where we need to put the C-notches over the boots so that they've got room to move. But yeah, I'm going to wait on the welding on the bottom, because once we get the cab off, get the rear suspension done, the frame's going to go upside down, and I'd rather wait and do the welding when it's on top instead of doing it upside down. Get better welds out of it, that sort of thing. So we're going to wait on that. So next step is the C-notches, and then we'll start assembling this. Well, I think we're just about ready to reassemble it. We're going to just put it together temporarily, get some wheels back on it, set it down on the ground, see where it sits. I don't really know how much just doing the Mustang II front end lowers the truck. So these are just the stock spindles and whatever stock height spring I suppose comes with it. So we'll get it all together here. But I did get the C-notches in, so right there, and then I got some flat stock that I bent around and got it all welded up in there, so it's nice and strong. There is a couple of spots, you know, down here the boxing plate doesn't come all the way to the bottom. I'm probably going to box up another at least 6 inches on both sides, just to give this front end some more, you know, strength up here, or else there's not a whole lot keeping it from just shifting sideways if it were to get bumped. So I'm going to get all the parts out here and then we'll start assembly. All right, we're going to start with just putting on the lower control arm, and then we'll get the spring in there, see if the truck doesn't have enough weight to keep it down. Hopefully it does. You know, and all this is going to be coming back apart, you know, once we get the frame, get painting the frame. So it's really just put it together so we can move it around if we have to. You know, and they had an odd number of washers on one side compared to the other, so I'm not sure whoever put it in the other truck there what they did, but we'll have to figure out how to align this thing. There we go. So this should just, you know, there's a little lip there so the spring can't just pop out. Get this under there and see if it doesn't have enough weight. I wonder if I shouldn't put the shock in first. Or else it'll be, won't be able to get it in with the jack under there. Then maybe worst case scenario, if spring does pop out, it'll just hit the jack. Oh, come on, can't get a hardware apart with one hand. There. So we got that sitting right. Bolts in. Well, that's going to be troublesome. There we go. And we're already lifting the truck. Oh, and of course I forgot to put the bushing in there. Let her back down again. and put the first bushing on. See if I can get that in there. Now I did it. Okay. Let's see if we can get that squeezed in there. All right. Let's try this again. All right, now we got the bushing on. All right, spring seated. Yeah, I'm not going to have near enough weight to get that on there. Bummer. I need this truck to think heavy thoughts. All right. Well, I'm going to figure out a solution to get some more weight on here and then turn the camera back on. All right, well, I wasn't able to get the bushing on, but I got the washer and the nut on there to at least hold it together. I just added, 200 pounds of semi-truck tires on there, and it was enough to get it close. So maybe when it's down on the ground and, I can put the jack under the back, we can take that off when it's on its wheels and get the bushing on there. That way I won't lose the bushing. I'd be good for that. So let's get the hub on here. Well, let's put the upper control arm first, I suppose. Oh. Now, is there a trick to these things, or no? That's got to be that way. I guess you just got to get your fingers up there and hold it forward so the T-bolt doesn't drop down. And oh, now this one's now that's just a silly design. Oh, you sucker. Alright, so so I'm just going to put it back where they had it because the wheels looked somewhat straight. Now, as far as alignment, I know there's certain degrees and this and that. Well, that boot's all jacked up. That camber and caster and all that needs to be. But can you just take something like this to an alignment shop and say, it's a, what is it, 78 Mustang II or something like that front end? Can they just align it that way? Or I'm not sure how that works. If you know how that works, drop a comment down below. I'd love to figure that out. Plan for the future a little bit. All right, let's get hub on. And they had two washers on here. I'm not sure why. That's why it sticks through the bottom. You wouldn't get the nut on all the way. That's the only downside about using a kit like this secondhand. I didn't get the instructions with it. I was just going by some that I found on the internet. So I don't know exactly how this is supposed to be going. Come on. Now that the spring's in there, everything's gonna want to fight because I can't move it up and down. I really don't want to pry on these because these are painted. They're dirty, but they're painted. Well, maybe we just put a rag on there and hopefully not mess it all up. Let's see what we got. Put a glove on there. Don't want to mar it all up if we don't have to. I need like 6 hands to do this. Oh my goodness, let's bring my belly into it here. And I think those boots are supposed to press on there too. I've never used or seen anything with these screw-in ball joints on it before, so that's new to me. And I worked in auto shops, framework, ball joints and all that. That's what I love doing, but I never touched anything with screw-in ball joints. Granted, I'm sure these are all aftermarket. So, well, that's tight enough for now. I guess that's all going to come apart. So, let me get my tires out of the way here, and then I'll switch you to the other side. We'll struggle and do the same thing. Throw some tires on it and set it down. Alright, I just went ahead and bolted the upper control arm right away. You know, then set the tires on here. Those buggers are heavy. So, let's do the same thing over again and try to learn from how we did it last time. Probably not, though. It's not how things work. Yeah, see, the other side had 3 washers on the back side, and this side's got 2. So I don't really understand why that would be. I don't know, maybe he's just trying to shift, the guy was trying to shift things around, I'm not sure. Alright, well, that wasn't so bad. On the other Mustang II crossmember kits that I looked at, the tube at the center here that you have to weld in, it's like a center tube, and then there's the back piece with the gusset. This one appears to be one tube all the way through, so I'm not sure what brand kit this is, because I couldn't find any that were like that. Maybe this is how they used to do it and it's just old, I'm not sure. But either way, it seems, in theory, it seems better. But who's to say? We'll remember to put our bushing on beforehand.
That'll help. I mean, these shocks, these are new. I took them out of the box. This one's just dirty. I mean, these blue shocks really aren't any good, I don't think. Alright. Put that in there. Put this in there. Struggle some more. Alright. And hope we've got enough weight this time. It'd probably be better, get more leverage if I went under the ball joint, but I don't want to squish the grease zerk that's under there. Seems more work than it's worth to take it off. Can't see nothing in there. Now we're lifting it again. I think we might be going, oh, the other side's still sitting. Well, we can get the washer and the nut on there at least. That'll keep it together. Just push on it a little bit, get a couple more thread. Oh, there we go. Just want to make sure at least all the threads in the nut are on there. Spring's seated right where it needs to go. So we should be able to a lot of rust creaking in the back. All right, now let's get the spindle on. And of course I'm going to have to go through these hubs because the wheel seals or spindle seals or whatever they're called, they're in the front seat of that other truck. So if they're there, how can they be in the hubs? Once I saw that, I knew they just kind of threw it together. There's no grease in there, so with it sitting outside, those bearings are just, they're a little rusty. So before we go anywhere with it, we'll get new bearings in there, new races. All right. Need to get pry bar again. Oh. Should have Sam come out to the shop with me tonight. She could have been an extra pair of arms, but she had other things going on. Okay. Oh. Nope, you get in there. At least get this started and get a better grip before that pry bar slides off. And it all comes up and hits me in the face. All right. Thread this nut on the shock bolt just for now. Yeah, that'll never stay there. Put it up here where we'll lose it there too. All right. I'm gonna get these tires off here, and then we'll get the wheels on and drop it down. Oh, just kidding. I got to put the rack on there. So I'm gonna get the tires off, put the rack on there, and then we'll get it back on the ground. We'll see where it sits. Well, I got the rack on, just loosely on there. I tightened the 2 bolts or else it flops around. But put the wheels on. I got, you know, all of 1 lug nut on each wheel. You know, that's how it came. And I don't have any more lug nuts to the right thread pitch. So we're gonna roll with that. So let's drop it down and see what it looks like. Those springs didn't move much. Didn't think they would. Not without an engine on here. But now these tires that fit this suspension, they are about 1 inch smaller all the way around, so 2-inch total height. So it's sitting 1 inch lower than it would. Oh, I bet you I can get those bushings in now. Another time. But I think that's going to be sweet. Let's see, check out over here. You know, I mean, without the fenders on, it's hard to tell. But I left those at my house, so we had a little bit more room to get axle off and mess around with the parts truck too. So it's hard to tell, but it's definitely going to be a little bit lower in the front. So what we've got some new suspension planned for the rear. Once we get that in, maybe we need to get 2-inch drop spindles. We'll figure that out at that time. But or maybe we go airbags on the front. What do you think? You know, we could put airbags all the way around and really be able to drop it down. I don't know. Probably float pretty good on air. But I don't know, I think that's pretty sweet. You know, really frees this up, gets rid of that big bulky cross member there, and makes way for, you know, that 6OLS. So I better get pulling that out of the parts truck, the other parts truck, so we can get that in, you know, maybe next week. And we'll see how this goes. But I like where we're headed right now. I'm excited. So thanks for watching. If you like this type of content and you want to see this truck back on the road complete, go ahead and subscribe, follow along. You know, we're going to be doing these types of projects, you know, for the foreseeable future. You know, I've got some other, you know, I'm a truck guy, so I've got some other trucks in mind, but I'm not opposed to cars. Just got to find the right deal that fits the budget. So go ahead and follow along, and you know, we'll see where we end up. Thanks for watching.